did I say it like that? It sounded normal. But her eyes changed, just for a second. Did I hurt her? She said, "It's fine." But it didn't feel fine. Maybe I'm overthinking. I always do this. But what if I'm not? The moment is already gone. The conversation has moved on. Everyone else is thinking about something new, but your mind is still there, replaying the tone, the pause, the micro-expression that no one else seemed to notice. And a quiet question forms, not for the first time. Why does my brain do this? This isn't anxiety. It isn't panic. This is what being too aware feels like. What too aware really means. There's a certain kind of person who doesn't move easily through the world. Not because they're weak, not because they're broken, but because they see too much. They walk into a room and immediately feel the emotional temperature. They notice who's tense, who's performing, who's holding something back behind a practiced smile. They hear what people say, but they also hear what isn't said. The hesitation, the shift in tone, the silence that lingers just half a second longer than it should. These are the people who are too aware, not distracted, not confused, aware. They don't skim life, they absorb it. And that kind of awareness doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like weight. A mind that never fully stops. Being too aware means your mind rarely rests. It's always scanning, connecting, interpreting. You don't just experience moments, you analyze them as they happen. You don't just feel emotions, you trace where they came from, what triggered them, what they might mean about you. While others move forward, you pause, not because you're unsure, but because you're processing 10 layers at once. That pause is often misunderstood. People call it hesitation, indecision, overthinking, but it isn't. It's depth. Awareness is not anxiety. Awareness is often mistaken for anxiety, but they aren't the same. Anxiety fears outcomes. Awareness questions meaning. People who are too aware aren't afraid of what might happen. They're overwhelmed by understanding. They see how everything connects, how one sentence can echo for years, how a small decision quietly reshapes a life, how people repeat emotional patterns without realizing they're inside them. They don't just see events, they see implications. The brain that turns life into meaning. Psychologically, highly aware people show increased activity in the brain's default mode network, the system responsible for introspection, memory, imagination, and inner narrative. It's the part of the brain that turns experience into understanding. But when it's always active, life feels heavier. Because you don't just live moments, you carry them. A glance becomes a question. A short interaction becomes a replay. A memory from years ago resurfaces, asking to be examined again. Not because you're stuck, but because your mind refuses to leave meaning unfinished. Why you remember everything so deeply. People who are too aware don't just remember what happened, they remember how it felt, what it symbolized, what it revealed. This is depth processing, encoding experiences with emotional and conceptual richness. Your memories aren't snapshots, they're ecosystems. That's why nostalgia hits harder, why music collapses time, why certain places feel haunted by versions of yourself that no longer exist. You don't miss moments, you miss meanings. Why you become careful with words. Awareness changes how you speak. You understand that words linger. That tone carries meaning beyond intention. That careless language can quietly wound. So you hesitate, not from lack of confidence, but from precision. When others choose noise, you choose silence. And silence is misunderstood. People think you're distant, disengaged, cold, but you're listening to everything. The subtext, the energy, the emotional undercurrent beneath the exchange. To you, communication isn't about talking, it's about alignment. Why small talk exhausts you. People who are too aware crave depth the way others crave stimulation. Small talk drains you because it asks you to pretend you don't see beneath the surface. You don't just ask, "What happened?" You ask, "Why did it matter? What does this say about people? What does this reveal about me?" This level of metacognition makes you deeply self-aware, but it also makes self-doubt louder. Because when you see clearly, you also see your flaws in high resolution. The paradox of self-awareness. You understand others easily, but yourself feels endlessly complex. You replay conversations, reconsider reactions, wonder what you revealed without meaning to, not out of insecurity, but out of awareness. Every choice carries multiple meanings. Your mind refuses to simplify them. That's the paradox. Why you feel out of sync with the world. The world rewards speed, certainty, confidence, not reflection, not nuance, not depth. So people who are too aware learn to mask. They nod when they disagree, smile when their mind is elsewhere. Keep thoughts inside because explaining them feels exhausting. And when the room empties, that's when the real dialogue begins. Inside. The quiet loneliness of depth. There's loneliness in awareness, not because you lack connection, but because real connection requires depth, and not everyone wants to go there. So you become selective. You observe. Wait. Watch for signs of awareness in others. And when you finally open, you don't do it halfway. You share carefully, but fully. Because people who are too aware don't do shallow bonds. Their attachment is conscious. Their love is intentional. Why everything hits harder. When you see the world in layers, disappointment cuts deeper. You expect honesty beneath behavior, meaning beneath words. So inconsistency hurts. Silence hurts. Disappearing without explanation hurts. Not because you're fragile, but because you invested understanding. To an aware mind, everything matters. A small kindness can restore faith. A small betrayal can feel enormous. Emotional complexity, not too much. This intensity is often labeled as too much, but it isn't. It's emotional complexity, the ability to hold multiple emotions at once. You don't label feelings as good or bad. You treat them as information. Fear shows you what matters. Sadness reveals attachment. Joy reminds you what's fragile. That's why numbing doesn't work well for you. Why you need solitude. Noise doesn't quiet your mind, it amplifies it. Silence can feel overwhelming, but it's also where clarity lives. That's why solitude isn't avoidance, it's regulation. Alone, your nervous system settles, your thoughts untangle, your awareness softens into understanding, and in that quiet, you remember who you are. When awareness turns into wisdom, awareness without grounding can spiral. So the healthiest aware people learn expression, art, writing, creation, service. They learn that thinking isn't meant to replace living, it's meant to deepen it. Eventually, something shifts. They stop chasing answers. They allow experience. They realize peace isn't found in understanding everything, but in needing less explanation. Presence becomes enough. The quiet strength of being too aware. When awareness is balanced, something extraordinary happens. People who are too aware become bridges between logic and empathy, between understanding and compassion, between seeing pain and still choosing love. They don't divide people into good or bad. They see stories. They forgive easily, but they remember lessons deeply. If they seem melancholic, it isn't sadness, it's awareness. It's knowing beauty and loss are inseparable, that everything changes, that joy and grief share the same root. In a world addicted to certainty, people who are too aware hesitate, not because they don't care, but because they care too much to speak without thought. They know complexity matters. They know silence can be intelligent. They know meaning takes time. And maybe that's why they exist, to slow the world down just enough for meaning to catch up. So if you feel too aware, if your mind lingers where others move on, if moments stay with you longer than they seem to stay with anyone else, if you've ever wondered why life feels heavier in your hands, even when nothing is wrong, there is nothing broken in you. Don't apologize for your depth. Don't shrink your perception to make others comfortable. Don't teach yourself to look away just because the world prefers not to see. You were never meant to skim life. You were meant to feel it fully, to notice what others pass by without registering, to hear what isn't said, to sense meaning before it's named. Your awareness isn't a mistake. It's the reason beauty moves you so deeply, the reason loss teaches instead of hardening you, the reason you care with intention, not impulse. Yes, it can be heavy. Yes, it can feel lonely at times, but it also means you bring presence into rooms that rush, understanding into moments that could have stayed shallow, care into a world that often forgets to slow down. You don't exist to be louder. You don't exist to be simpler. You don't exist to move faster than your truth. You exist to see clearly, to hold meaning gently, to live with attention, and in a shallow world that mistakes noise for importance. Awareness isn't a flaw. It's a quiet kind of light, one that doesn't demand attention